Good afternoon and welcome to Hashtag No Limits. I am your host, Shelly Kino, and Hashtag No Limits is a show about people that society has placed limits upon, but who have busted through those limits. As an education consultant and former special educator, I have seen this happen so many times where a child, you might think a certain thing about that child at a young age, and when they turn into an adult, they are doing so many things that maybe people didn't think they would be able to do. Or, just even academically, within a shorter period of time, things will happen that people didn't think were going to happen. It could also happen medically. And so I'm so pleased to bring these stories of everyday people doing wonderful things and busting through those limits. And as you've probably always noticed, if you've watched this before, that I have a butterfly up in the corner because Ophelia says in Hamlet, we know who we are, but not who we will be. And the caterpillar turning into the butterfly, to me, exemplifies that like nothing else. I mean, why would you ever think something that was crawling on the ground would someday be soaring through the skies? So I love the butterfly and I love that example. And I am so thrilled to introduce my guests to you today. This is Purely Patrick is with me today, and Patrick and his mom, Mary Ann, are joining me. And so thank you for joining us today. How are you guys?
We're good. Are we good? We're good. Yeah, thanks for having us, Shelly.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell us about Patrick and kind of what your lives have been like so far.
So Patrick will be 30 in November, which I'm in a bit of denial over.
How can that be? Because you must only be like 35. So
right, exactly. So how could he possibly be 30?
Right.
So Patrick was born in 91. He was supposed to be born in 92, but he was 14 weeks premature. So to kind of give you a time frame of that, he was supposed to be born on Valentine's Day. He was born 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. So he started out as an awfully little guy in the NICU. His lowest weight was 1 pound 8 ounces, which is kind of hard to picture. The best way I can say is that my husband, Patrick's dad, George, who's not particularly a big guy, his wedding band, George's wedding band, went all the way up to Patrick's shoulder. So that's how tiny his arms were. But as I like to say, Patrick was a fighter and a lover. Always been a fighter and a lover, haven't you? So Patrick has a diagnosis of cerebral palsy. He's got intellectual delay. He's got a seizure disorder. And he's totally blind. Other than that, I love to sing and smile. And he does adaptive skiing, adaptive paddleboarding. He loves to swim. Loves to go for car rides and eat out when it's not in the middle of a pandemic. You're very sociable, aren't you? The whole town knows you. And of course, he's got his own business, Purely Patrick.
Yes, and you sent me several pictures, and one of the pictures that you sent me, I have a hard time looking at and not crying. And that's the picture of him in the NICU. And even just thinking about it, because he was so tiny. And that I have a niece who was, she was 8 weeks premature, and you wouldn't know it today, just like, as far as Patrick's size, you wouldn't know that he was a preemie. And I've known other people that have been born premature, but I actually, now that I think about it, I know someone who's I think she's older than Patrick, but I'm not going to say how much older. And she was only like 1.5 pounds or a 1.8 or 9 ounces too. So that is just amazing. But the picture that you shared, and I'll share it with our audience here in a little bit, it was just so, I don't know, it just overwhelmed me to see exactly how tiny.
And as a new parent, that's kind of an overwhelming way, obviously, to start. I mean, I think new parenthood is overwhelming in its best case scenario, but in some regards, you were leaving Patrick in the best of care in the NICU, but in other regards, you were going home empty-handed. I was going home empty-handed from the hospital without a baby. And then each and every day when you had to leave the NICU, you were going home without this individual. And, you know, a lot of times you could talk to Patrick or you could touch him, but you couldn't do both because it would overstimulate him and he would go into an apnea event or a bradycardia. I will never forget, my husband and I felt very strongly to have Patrick baptized in the NICU. And the minister that had married us, I had grown up with, came down about an hour and a half from Baltimore, and they granted him special permission to come in, as well as my parents. And so it was a very tiny little ceremony, closely overseen by the NICU nurse, who kept stopping it because Patrick was going into medical crisis. And she's like, sorry, this is a little more important. And I will never forget that the minister brought some water from the River Jordan to baptize Patrick. And the NICU nurse said, oh, with all due respect, no, sir, you will use my sterile bullet.
Yeah. Oh.
So she gave him a sterile bullet of water, and that's what he was baptized with. So, yeah. So it's, and I think, I'm trying to remember if he was 23 days old or 25 days old when we were finally able to hold him. Because again, you just can't handle a little preemie that much,
right?
Without kind of sending them into crisis. And even then it was like a quick picture, a quick snuggle, and back you go because you're losing your body temperature out of your isolation and you need to get back in. So yeah, but look at you. Look at you. You're a big strapping brute, aren't you? Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, my book, which I know that you have read, and thank you for the kind words that you shared with me the other day. There was a parent in there who her child was whisked away right after giving birth, and she said she was kind of like what you said, you know, that she didn't leave the hospital, she stayed where she was, but the baby had to go to a different hospital, and she said it was so strange because she knew she was a mother, but she didn't feel like she expected to feel as a mother because she didn't have the baby to swaddle and hold and you know, all of those kinds of things. So did you go through things like that as well?
Oh, I most definitely did. Probably my rock bottom moment was the second day of Patrick's life. I had been in a high risk OBGYN unit for weeks in the hospital prior to Patrick's birth. So I was on 100% bed rest. So, and then I had an emergency C-section, so I wasn't exactly raring to go at the moment. So, George went to the NICU and had some time with Patrick, and the nurses took a Polaroid picture, which is about as good as it got back in the day.
Sure. Right.
And so the Polaroid picture was taped on my little hospital bedside table, and so it was hard to get any scale or perspective in this Polaroid picture. And hi there, buddy. I was working really hard on trying to sit upright without my blood pressure dropping, since I hadn't sat upright for six weeks and I had just had major surgery. So the next day I went by wheelchair to the NICU, and when I saw Patrick, I just totally broke down and lost it, because I just kept saying to my husband, that's not him, that's not him. Because in my mind's eye, he was so much bigger.
Right.
Because in the Polaroid, he just looked bigger to me, and there were no details, and you just couldn't really see anything. And I just was so shocked when I first finally saw him, how tiny he was. So, yeah, it was kind of a very brutally raw week where I was really kind of hesitant to bond, because I didn't want to lose. If I was afraid if I lost him, it would hurt even more. And it was George who said, you know what, if you don't bond and you lose him, you're never going to forgive yourself. And I was like, he's absolutely right. And that was kind of my turning point.
Yeah, so that does make a big difference. And I want to share, if it's okay with you, because we are talking about that time of how tiny he was. Is it okay if I pull up the slide and share that?
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm not sure. I got to see what you're seeing first to make sure that okay, yep, nope, it didn't go into full screen there. So, okay. So yeah, we'll get back to that in a second, but, and I put these two pictures together to show.
It's the same head angle, isn't it?
It's just such a vast difference. And I just can't imagine. I mean, I'm looking at, I'm presuming that's your hand.
No, that's a respiratory therapist. I wasn't really handling him at that point to that level of comfort. And they really didn't want us to. No, that was a respiratory therapist who had taken I think at that point he was on nasal cannula, and she was doing what they call a blow-by therapy and like suctioning him. So, but you can see how little his arm was and how George's brain would have indeed gone up to his shoulder. He also still had the Velcro patch. You can only see it, I guess, on his left side. But he had the Velcro patch for the bilirubin lights as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean, and
that's an interesting contrast. I've never seen them side by side like that. That's a great way to view it.
Well, and he looks so happy, and I love this pink shirt. That's such a good color on him. I have other pictures that, like I said, we'll show a little bit later. And this one, he just looked so happy, and I just thought, that's such a contrast, and I did want to bring that out because like I said, I actually did okay this time looking at the picture. I'm not bursting into tears like I was the other times that I would see that NICU picture. And so do you know, like, approximately how many days old he was in that shot?
I think he was about maybe 2 weeks old in that shot.
Wow. And by that, I mean, he's probably grown somewhat, probably not a lot, but.
Right. So my other kind of interesting little NICU tale, I may have told you this already, Shelley, is that, the lactation specialist visits you in your room and kind of sets you up with, let's help you, teach you how to pump, because Patrick's not most likely ever going to be able to breastfeed, but the breast milk would be very valuable to him. And he never did get that suck, swallow, breathe coordination. So the breast milk was gavage fed through an OG tube. But I had to have a way to get the breast milk that I expressed at home back to the NICU. And they gave me tons of little, like, 50 milliliter bottles. And so my dad, with a funny sense of humor, brought in a Coors Light insulated cooler. So Patrick's breast milk traveled back and forth, or not back and forth, but to the hospital in the Coors Light. And so every single NICU nurse knew this Coors Light cooler, and they were always like, "Here comes your beer, Patrick."
That is so awesome. Oh,
we really tried to make as good a situation as you could. The other thing was the NICU nurses were just phenomenal. And they said, you wake up at 2 a.m., you're worried, you're nervous, you call us. You're not waking us up. We all work 24/7. Not they all work 24/7, but they're there 24/7. And so I would do that. I'd be like, I can't sleep. How's my little guy? And they'd give me the update.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So if we have a guest, an audience member who I guess missed the first part of, how much did he weigh when he was born?
He was 1 pound 14 ounces, and then he dropped to 1 pound 8 ounces.
Wow.
So that was his lowest, was 1.5 pounds. Yeah.
Wow.
Today you're at 165, aren't you, buddy?
And some ounces, but we're not going to talk about the ounces now. We don't need to.
We're not going to go there.
Yeah. So tell me about, all the adjustments that you had to go through once you brought him home, and then kind of just an overview of, kind of what his life was like going to school and what the schooling was like, and just kind of bring us up to, and then we'll start talking about the business.
So, being a new parent, I think I would have been nervous regardless. When Patrick was in the NICU, he was actually discharged to the pediatric unit as kind of a step down. And we were concerned that he was congested at that point when he was discharged. Thankfully, he was discharged on an apnea monitor, which was on him pretty much 24/7. And unfortunately, that alarmed. I would say within maybe 4 days of being home, that went off, and Patrick had coded. He got RSV, which is a respiratory syncytial virus, and was whisked back by the ambulance to the PICU at a different hospital. I was fighting to go back to the NICU because they knew him, not realizing that, once you graduate from the NICU, it doesn't matter if you're just out 2 days, you're now PICU material, not NICU material. So,
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so into the pediatric intensive care unit we went, where they did a experimental drug that they were using. It wasn't even FDA approved at the time. Because he had apparently such a bad case of RSV that they really felt that this was the one life-saving thing they could do. I remember they said it was what they call a tertiary drug. So he was in a room with double doors. We had to come in, shut that door, go in the next one, shut that door. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, what is this doing to us? But a little guy. But he continued to fight. The relevance, I think, of this story is that I think it just always exaggerated the fear we always had that, like, okay, he's good for the moment, but when is the next shoe going to drop?
Sure.
And, we see your belly. Now they'll know you don't weigh 1 pound 8 ounces anymore. So the other critical piece of that, which has really kind of shaped Patrick's life, is that they had to put him on 70% oxygen. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but room air is only 21% oxygen. So 70% oxygen is a lot. And they had to continue him at that level really to sustain his life. His retinas were well attached and in good shape when he left the NICU. But that event was probably what started the detachment of his retinas and caused the retinopathy of prematurity. So he, at one point, had surgery to one eye. What you looking for? Oh, you're going to get your harmonica. You can play that for them. And that gave him a little bit of light perception. However, he's lost the light perception. So he really, and now he's got corneal clouding on top of it. So for all intents and purposes, Patrick's, he wasn't born blind, but he's, I think, always, that's what he's always known. And honestly, I don't mean to belittle his blindness, but I think in the scheme of things, sometimes that's the least of his issues. However, you do pick up so much learning vicariously through your vision that, maybe if he had some vision, it would have helped. So,
right.
Who's to say?
Right, exactly. We can't go back and relive. So yeah, we just have to.
Anyway, then he started early intervention at home. Because of his diagnosis of blindness, he was eligible to work to go in the early intervention infant toddler program at the Maryland School for the Blind, which was phenomenal. That kind of shaped me. I have been an occupational therapist for 12 years before Patrick was born. I realized there was a world of pediatrics out there I had never thought to explore, and so I kind of switched gears at that point and became a pediatric OT, a double agent, as I like to say. But I kind of learned from Patrick, and what I learned I applied kind of with Patrick. And then I eventually ended up at the Maryland School for the Blind for 16 years. I would probably still be there if we hadn't moved to Vermont to open a bed and breakfast. So I'm not sure. Did I answer your question, Shelley?
Yeah, you did. Not completely, but that's okay. So yeah, we were talking about like his schooling. So was he at the Maryland Institute for the Blind his whole school career then?
Yes, Maryland School for the Blind. Yes. No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
He was when we lived in Maryland, he was there. When we moved to Vermont, he went into a public high school because there was no school for the Vermont. It's so much tinier of a population. They just don't have the census to support it. So he went from a very small school with like a very supportive ratio of special ed teachers and paraeducators. And basically in his program, there was one special ed teacher and 2 paraeducators to 6 kids. Patrick had never had a one-on-one aide because behaviorally he just didn't need that. But when he moved to public high school, he did have a one-on-one aide. And they were a little lost because they had never had a Patrick. And so I really kind of helped them develop a curriculum that worked for him. And that's when we started his business, and his BI, his behavioral intervention support person, came to the house to work on his products with him to see if it was something that could really be feasible and work. So, but they, instead of doing adaptive PE, I took them to the indoor swimming pool, because again, Patrick would have been the only one in adaptive PE, and it was hard to adapt kind of the regular ed curriculum to Patrick. In the winter, he did adaptive skiing, and the school bus transported him there. And so they really did a phenomenal job figuring out how to best meet Patrick's needs.
And I really appreciate that at the start of that part of your story, you said they'd never had a Patrick before.
What?
To be honest, every student that walks into a classroom, a teacher has never had a student like that before.
True.
Unfortunately, though, we forget that sometimes, and we want the student to learn us instead of the other way around. But it doesn't sound like you had bad experiences. It sounds like
we had a very good experience. We had a phenomenal special ed coordinator, some really good support therapists. The BI was phenomenal. Yeah.
That's amazing. That warms my heart, because unfortunately, as an education consultant, I get called in for the cases where parents are not receiving that kind of support, and they should be, based on the law and just kind of, in my opinion, human kindness. But my opinion doesn't always hold water. So, but yeah, so it does. It really warms my heart to see that teachers and administrators understand when they need to learn somebody else, because of that individualization of our laws and our programs that we write. So, at what stage did you decide, or how did the business idea come about? Let's go with that question.
So it was definitely an evolution. For years and years and years, I was struggling with, what is Patrick going to do when he graduates? And the one thing that gave me some solace with that was, I think our daughter was probably 7 and Patrick was probably 9. She asked me, "Mom, will Patrick go to college?" And I got rather choked up and said, "Nope, I don't believe so." And she said, "Well, why not?" And I said, "Well, I just think it's going to be too hard for him." And, she obviously loved Patrick for who he was and didn't quite understand the whole big picture anyway. But so she said, "Well, what will he do when he grows up, Mom?" And I, again, got a little teary-eyed and said, "Desiree, I don't know yet. I honestly don't know." And I think in my mind, I was picturing like a medical daycare program and thinking, I hope not. It doesn't feel comfortable for me.
Sure.
And Desiree, our daughter, out of the mouth of babe, said, "I know, Mom. Patrick's job will be to make everyone happy."
Oh.
And I was just like, okay, that gave me peace of mind ongoing, like you wouldn't believe. I was just like, it's going to be okay, because if nothing else, that will be Patrick's job.
Yeah, that's so cool.
All the time, don't you? So, so that kind of helped me relax the pressure of what are we going to do? What does this look like? Well, then we moved to Vermont, where services are very individualized, and they have very much of an inclusion model. And they have like, what can we do to make it work for Patrick kind of mentality, which we're very fortunate about. Can you sit up, please? Whoa. Are you getting tired? Sit up a little bit, bud. So what I was doing was looking at what Patrick could do as an OT and kind of as a mom. What could Patrick do? And he used to make these, it's like a boy sound, these hand motions. And he would make these squishy hand farts, for lack of another word. That's what, call it what it is, right, Patrick? So he would take, so what I was trying to figure out, what can we do with these hand motions to kind of put it into something functional? So his OT at the School for the Blind said, well, what if we make bath salts? So she would put salts and scents and color into a like Ziploc baggie, and Patrick would squish it and mix it together. And so that seemed to be working for a while. Then we were like, well, now what are we going to do with these? Well, he had a pouring device. And so she said, well, let's take it the next step. Once he's done with the bath salts, we'll put them in his pouring device. He can hit the switch, and that'll fill these little cups, little bottles, and we'll make labels and we'll sell bath salts. So that's really how it started, was kind of looking at what Patrick could do. And that was the first vocational use he had of the pouring device. He had used it to put the egg in the cake mix, help me make your milkshake, water the plants, that kind of thing, but he had never used it vocationally. So then bath salts is kind of the way life goes, huh? Bath salts were starting to become contraband because kids were starting to sniff them.
Oh,
and so, yes, so bath salts were being outlawed everywhere. And actually, we were selling them here at the, because then we had moved to Vermont and we were still doing this bath salts. Well, we own an inn, it's perfect, we'll sell them at the inn kind of mentality. So we had a guest from Ireland who bought some and took them home, got waylaid in the Belfast airport because she had contraband bath salts. So he said, it's not a big deal, I'll throw them away, I don't mean to have some. And so when she emailed me this story, I was like, it's time to stop the bath salts. So then we were kind of like, well, what can we do that doesn't have the same health hygiene standards? So we got into like the dog cookie thing, but that wasn't really a win-win for Patrick because he couldn't participate in much of that. So he didn't like squishing the dough. He didn't like using the dog bone cookie cutter and cutting them out. He didn't seem to care for the smell. It was a different recipe back then. He didn't seem to like anything about this process. And a little bit of tactile defensiveness. And so the other thing is, when you're doing hand over hand assistance with a child who's blind, you're like, you're blocking my vision, let my hands alone. I don't want any hand over hand assistance, thank you. So it just was like, why are we doing this? This is not working for Patrick. So along about that time, we had a graphic designer that was helping us out. And I said to her, I'm trying to figure out what Patrick's going to do if he's not liking these dog cookies. And she said, well, is there some way he could assemble a kit of dog cookies that he doesn't actually make them, but he puts the ingredients in them and someone could take them home? And I said, that's a great idea. So I thought, I can't take this recipe, which was huge, and titrate it down to like a little Ziploc baggie. How am I going to do that? Right. So I jumped online and I Googled dog cookie recipes, and one happened to be in a ball jar. And I was like, well, look at that. We could do, and I had done, cookies like that for teacher gifts over the years. I'm like, we could do belly showing. We could do dog cookie jar, and you could use your switch. And again, the switch can be in front of Patrick. The ingredients, which are preloaded and pre-measured by the job coach, can be out of any hygiene concern ways. And voila. And so we started with dog cookies, we started with chocolate chips, we started with one soup. We had 5 things. I'm trying to think what the other 2 were. But anyway, so that's how it all started. It was kind of an evolution. So
that's so awesome. And to be able to think outside the box, so to speak, or outside the ball jar, and to figure that sort of thing out. And so yes, one of the reasons that she talked about the fact that the dog biscuit recipe was different then than it is now is because I actually purchased the dog biscuit recipe, and it's amazing. It came in this container. At the time, this container was full, and it came, and I forgot to grab it to show it today, but it came with a little sticky, or not a sticky note, but a little, yes, attachment, I should say, that had the directions on the back and told me exactly what else I needed and the exact amount of what I needed. And then there was the cookie cutter in the shape of the dog bone. Now, I had looked down just a minute ago to see, and I just double checked that if my dog was here with me, because many times he'll lay by me when I'm doing this, and he's not, but I was going to show you, he's just a little, like not even 8-pound Chihuahua. Oh. And so when I got the cookie cutter and I made the first set of cookies, they're this big. That's like a third of the size of my dog.
Well, it's funny. We have little dog bone cookie cutters.
Oh, do you?
And we hardly ever put them on because we don't know. Like, we just don't hear on the side of this dog is probably big. But we have little dog bone cookie cutters.
That's funny. Well, but so my thing is, I was able to get out of the mix, I think it was 45 of, I don't know if that's like kind of what the normal amount is. But then I have to break these in thirds. So, I've got like 125 dog biscuits now. And my dog absolutely loves them. Like, he actually kind of did a little taste test, and I was like, okay, here's a store-bought kind and here's the Purely Patrick kind. And he picked the Purely Patrick kind over 2 out of the 3 store brand kinds. So that made me feel really good because I thought these are all natural ingredients, and they're better for him than the store-bought stuff is going to be.
I have to say, somebody emailed me once and said they smelled really good. Did I ever try them? I said, no, honestly, I haven't, but you could. It's all edible.
Right. It's got Parmesan cheese, and there was some garlic in it.
And garlic, yep.
Yeah, and of course
whole wheat flour, and there's some dried milk in there. Yeah. And we do those wheat free too, because apparently quite a few dogs have wheat allergens.
Really?
So,
That's so
I
crazy.
didn't know that either,
so I my next order will be probably one of the soups or one of the cookie mixes, because
so I brought them to show because that's part of the evolution as well. So we started in the ball jars. This is what's Patrick's crazy cranny. Can you sit up there? So ball jars are probably our original go-to method of packing. As you said, you got yours in a reusable water bottle. And this was kind of an evolution of shipping. We were looking for something that was lightweight and less breakable. And then we actually just recently have started with this food grade FDA approved bag.
Like a vacuum sealed bag.
Yeah. And the nice thing with that is you can heat seal it at the top. So it's, it's totally tamper proof. So, and then this is the birdseed mix. This one is a nice one for Patrick to make because it's noisy. And this one's very noisy too. He likes to make the ones, it seems, that are the noisiest or have the most smell. Like his chai tea is really a very aromatic one. But this was the idea of our daughter as well, because a lot of people would come up to him at farmers markets and say, I want to buy something for my grandmother, but she's diabetic. And so Desiree came up with this idea.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm going to go back to the slideshow and just share a little bit of those again. So this is a little bit of what the items come packaged as, and I gotta get to the right picture here. So this looks like it's got some colorful, maybe M&Ms. So I'm guessing that's one of the cookie mixes.
So he does just an M&M cookie. He does a regular M&M and a gluten-free M&M. The M&Ms are what's gluten-free, but the flour part is gluten-free. I mean, the M&Ms are gluten-free, but this is his Easter brand. So what he tries to do is find, which was hard last year, but he tries to find the holiday M&Ms and swap them out, and say, even if you order online at that time, do you want Easter M&Ms or do you want spring M&Ms? Do you want Christmas M&Ms? So, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And then the next picture will be the one that we showed. And so can you see what the 3 different pictures are in here? Yep. Do you want to go ahead and describe what's happening in each one?
So this is Patrick doing his community thing. So the first one, we're at the grocery store shopping for his ingredients. And Patrick, it's money in, money out, isn't it? He comes along and he buys his own ingredients. Sometimes, he likes to hold the cart, but he really can't push it. We've tried. I'll push you, you push the cart.
Yeah.
It ends up in a derailed train wreck. That doesn't work so well. They do have, and I couldn't find the picture. I think it's on my poster board picture. They do have a Caroline's cart at that grocery store, which has a big insert car seat, and it's got 4 wheels. You can lock the casters so it doesn't keep sliding off on you. And then I can transfer Patrick in that, and then he's part and parcel of the cart, and so that works really well too.
Yeah.
The second picture is in Patrick's room. He's got his ingredients behind him, but he's got some boxes that he's shipping off for an online order. And then the next picture, he's going to the post office in his lift van with his job coach and myself to mail them. So we had a picture of the Patrick inside the post office, although we were informed it was a federal offense to take a picture inside a post office. So
really,
we didn't know that, did we, Patrick? So we decided we better not make that one too public.
I did not know. So many rules and laws.
Because I thought it was like such a perfect picture to promote Patrick's really at the post office mailing your package, and then I was like, okay.
Oh, that's that. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's so crazy. All the things. Uh-oh. All right. Well, I don't know why it's giving me this message. Oh, there we go. Okay.
There we go. So Patrick loves to be outside. These are both water pictures. One happens to be in Sanibel, Florida, and one happens to be at Cape Cod. But we actually own a beach wheelchair. That one we rent from a bicycle shop down there. A lot of towns now have them kind of available to make the beach ADA accessible. But it's hard to see. That one has big balloon tires, so it's easier. It's not a piece of cake, but it's easier to push on the beach with that. But Patrick just loves the sunshine. He loves the breeze. He loves the fresh air. He loves the sounds. He's quite an outdoor enthusiast, aren't you?
Yeah, I think some of the next pictures. I love this. This is to me like his sense of humor. Like we've got Bernie, and then we have Olaf. So
Bernie was appearing everywhere, and so
he was. Yeah,
we tried really hard to figure out how to get Bernie to come to the farmers market, and one of them is not dressed correctly, but I can't figure out which one it is. One of them's either really hot or really warm, but. So, this is Patrick's. He's got his 10 by 10 tent. He's got, we kind of got bored with the 10 by 10 or 8 by 10 table with his products. And so I scoured the neighborhood for wooden ladders, and we painted them the primary colors. And so that's how we display his.
Those are awesome.
His things. And my husband put little edges on the back of each ladder. Like you can't see them because the products are there. But that way we've only lost a couple. We don't usually lose too many. Not too many of them break. But anyway, the next one is Olaf. Yes, I'm on a was on a stowe vibrancy board, and we were doing a whole winter wonderland weekend thing, and no one else would dress up as Olaf, so I said I would. So I'm like, hey, we might as well get our money's worth out of having this costume here. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Patrick, yes.
So there's Dad.
There's Dad. That's at, so the first one is an accessible trail a little south of us that we went to one Father's Day that overlooks a waterfall. And the other one is the Corkscrew Swamp in Naples, Florida.
Okay.
So we are always looking for kind of like accessible paths, and we get pretty good at knowing where they are in every state, don't we?
Yeah, I bet. So this is a little better version, a better view, I mean, of the
ladders.
Yeah, the ladders and you at the farmer's market, but then
I'm in the same shirt. So yeah, that's Patrick at the farmer's market. And then the one on the left is Patrick using his rolling, he's got a rolling anterior walker, which he can go for very short distances. Kind of the symbolism of that picture was his post for his walk to end Alzheimer's.
Oh,
so
wow.
one of his cookies he makes is a Grandma Joe's Snickerdoodle, which was my mom's recipe, and $2 from every jar goes to the Vermont Walk to End Alzheimer's. So that's what
awesome.
he was doing. He was doing his walk, weren't you? To promote it.
So now we get into some more of the outdoor activities.
So this is at Stowe Mountain Resort. They have a very strong adaptive program. It's part of Green Mountain Adaptive Sports. I'm on the board of that too. I think that's part of the secret is to keep these things going by being involved. But Patrick participates in a sit ski, which basically is a sled. It's got a chest harness. It's got a foot strap and a knee strap. Some people are tethered to the instructor and participate by kind of weight shifting and can turn the sled. Patrick is more passive than that in that he is not able to either physically, cognitively, visually do that. So they seat assist him and they do the turns for him. But he just absolutely loves this. You haven't heard Patrick sing too much today, but he has quite a repertoire of songs when he's in the mood. And one of the songs he sings, which took us quite a while to piece this together, but his young instructor figured it out. He was singing every time we were on the gondola, "Take Me to the Place I Love" by Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think its real name is called Under the Bridge.
Oh, wow.
But there's a line in there that says, "Take me to the place I love." And that's what he was singing repeatedly on the gondola. So
very cool.
Yeah, you're so smart, aren't you? Yeah, you're smart. I'm still here. Your turn to talk. My turn to talk. So on the left, Patrick is doing adaptive paddle boarding. So again, being on the board, I was kind of like, why does it have to be stand-up paddleboarding? Why can't it be sit-down paddleboarding?
Right.
So Patrick has really actually pretty good trunk control. His hamstrings are terribly tight, but we've learned if we cross his left leg over his right leg, then he does better. He doesn't do well at all the other way. And so they started out very slow and steady, and it was enough to maintain his balance just when the guy was, rowing very gently. Towards the end of the summer, they're rocking and rolling back and forth and really trying to get him in. And then sometimes you can just see him like, why am I working so hard? I love to swim. Let me just fall in. So he's out on that board for probably a good hour at a time. He's really tired after that. So, and then the picture on the right is just Patrick swimming. He does he goes from his stomach and does like a flutter kick, and then he rolls over on his back and he rests and he catches his breath. And so he, except for me keeping him from bumping the edges of the pool, I really don't, I'm in the water with him in case he had a seizure, but he's really pretty independent in the pool.
That's amazing. And I can't float. So that just the fact that he's floating at all is just
Oh,
incredible to me.
floater. So the one on the left, that's probably a little better picture. You can't see the wheels so much, but that's Patrick at the beach again. Pure joy. And then that's the Stowe Recreation Path. We just deviated off the path a little bit to get up towards the fence, but it's another really nice 5.5-mile paved walk that's truly accessible. Really, really a nice path, isn't it, buddy? Because you know half the people on the path.
And that's all of those that I have. I think I had included all of the ones that you sent me. I hope I did.
Oh, I think so.
So yeah, I think I did my best to get them all in there. There is one that you sent me that I wasn't able to put in, and that is the poster that I'm gonna share here in just a second, and that gives a better view of what you mentioned before about the grocery cart.
Well, and I display this poster at farmers markets because I kind of see farmers markets as much of a moment to kind of use it as a teachable moment to help people realize that people with significant disabilities can indeed be self-employed, and that Patrick really does make these products, and this is what he does. So
Right.
there's the Caroline cart, the blue one.
I'm going to see if I can't make that a little bit so that it's a little more all of it at the same time.
So there in the bottom right, he's using his switch. You can, I think that's birdseed you see going through the funnel and into the jar.
So tell me a little bit about that switch. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I don't know if you can see it here. It's over here. I don't know what.
Take this out for a second. Yeah. Okay. We can.
Can you see that? The line of the light's kind of weird. So it's very simple. The switch part comes over. This is Patrick's quote work switch. So it's got a different texture than a couple of his other switches. And he knows that this is his work switch. And when, so the job coach will put the ingredients in the cup, and then there's a funnel and into either the bag or the ball jar or the water bottle. Patrick, can you show him when you use your switch what happens to the cup? I don't have anything in my hand. Can you show him? Can you use your switch? I know there's nothing hooked up. Show him. Can you see the cup pouring?
Yeah.
I know you don't.
That's so cool.
Pouring, do you?
It's like, why am I working and nothing is happening?
Right. Exactly. So Patrick's one of his really good strengths is cause and effect. You're still doing it, aren't you? Yeah, there you go. Carrie would be proud of you. Carrie's his job coach. So he really has that cause and effect down pat. And so this is kind of like taking what he can do and taking his skill of cause and effect. I'm going to move that away from you so you don't have to work anymore. And, you know, applying it to become a job. And, you know, he doesn't work 24/7. No one wants to, do you?
No.
But he works 5 days a week, and sometimes he works faster than others. Sometimes he gets a little perseverative on things, and therefore it's harder to focus. But you're a pretty good worker, aren't you? What are you looking for? See, often when we work, I get an M&M or a butterscotch.
Oh.
Is that what you're looking for? No, hands down, buddy. Hands down.
I mean, we all want rewards when we work, so I'm all about that butterscotch. Marianne, we have talked about your website, well, his website, and that there's a little video on there that gives a little bit. Do you want me to still show that, or do you feel like we've covered everything and that's in that video?
If you want to start it, and or I don't know if you can do so that they can see Patrick working a little more, but you don't have to run through the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Let me pull that up.
I'm gonna get him an M&M while we're working.
Okay. Absolutely. Yep. So this is the website, and the reason that I popped it on this part of the website first is I absolutely love that saying, "Don't diss my ability." I think that speaks volumes because I personally I don't like the word disability because it comes from disable. And so, saying don't diss my ability to me was I just thought that was amazing. So here's the video down here.
I stole it from a self-advocacy t-shirt.
Hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. All right. So this looks like there's a different switch.
So
it was
that's Patrick's step-by-step. And
Okay.
so what we do with that is we put the ingredients on so that he's telling us what's next in the menu and in the recipe and what to put out for him. I've always struggled a little bit with the step-by-step. The only other reason we usually use it is at the farmer's market to kind of engage people. Thank you for stopping by. Let me know if you have any questions. It's a beautiful day out. Hope you're having a great day. I've always felt like it's a bit contrived, and it's got on there whatever I have put on there for Patrick to respond.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's got a finite use. But yeah, that's a step-by-step.
Okay. And I love what you have written here too. I have cerebral palsy, and even though I do not talk, I always get my point across. My hands see what my eyes cannot. Watch me make these products for you. So hopefully, can you hear it?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Well, starting a business can be a big gamble.
But a 19-year-old is winning with his made in Vermont goods and is beating the odds too. Gina Bullard has his story.
You're talkative today. Keep it going, my man.
Patrick Lewis has a gift.
That is how it all started, because he did that hand movement. And I thought, what can we do with that hand movement and capitalize on that? Come on, turn the cup around.
The teenager suffers from cerebral palsy after being born almost 4 months premature. But as his mom, Marianne Lewis, tells us, that doesn't hold him back.
So he doesn't have any vision at all, but he does a lot of exploration with his hands. He also had some brain damage from his prematurity. And so he uses kind of sounds and songs to communicate.
His business, Purely Patrick, capitalizes on what he can do.
Barley, split peas, rice.
With a voice output and pouring device, the 19-year-old creates ready-to-make jar mixes. Like a kit, you just add the wet ingredients to Patrick's jars. From dinner to dessert, he can do it.
This one is sequential, so you can put like the list of ingredients like that.
This one is his favorite, country soup, because it's the loudest to make. Singing as he works in his room. Just like the rest of us, he doesn't always feel like working.
Are we boring you?
And sometimes he can do like 4 jars in the morning. Sometimes he does 1. And we're kind of into like let him take his own time. If he wants to work quickly, that's good. If he doesn't, it's purely Patrick.
Do you think he has fun doing this?
Oh, I think I like it. Do you like it? I think he does enjoy it.
Patrick's jars range in price from $5 to $10, which he sells at his family's business, the Brass Lantern Inn in Stowe.
I don't think Patrick really worries about how much he sells. I think he has just more fun in the process, right, bud?
What? Patrick also loves going to local farmers markets, meeting the community, and marketing his business.
I'm not sure that he's going to retire rich with this business, but I think it's enough to give him like a meaningful purpose and enjoyment. That's what I'm hoping.
Vermont products made purely with purpose. Gina Bullard, Channel 3 News, Stowe.
That's awesome. And I know you had said to me once before that, you were, the website, you were kind of like, well, we put it together, it could, I think it's fabulous. I mean, it's
thank
got
you, Shelley.
everything that you need on it. It tells his story. Obviously, that was done just a couple of years ago.
Well, yeah, I realized it's like he was 19 there. And what's really funny is I realized how advanced our table has gotten. That table like was so small and not working. So George helped us order a larger table that even has electricity in the legs. So, we can plug things into the legs.
Wow.
Yeah, it's industrial. I think the only thing, and my daughter again picked up on this, that I would change in the video, and I think it's just where the world is that when she said the Gina, the host, said Patrick suffers from cerebral palsy, because my daughter very quickly said, suffers? Patrick doesn't suffer from anything.
Right. Yeah,
So,
and that I caught that too, and I was like, oh, okay. So I mean, and it's just one of those things, she probably didn't really think about what she was saying.
Right.
Or at least I hope not. But so we had another guest, I do that all the time. I say guest, but I mean audience member. And Jamie is somebody that I would like to introduce you to, because Jamie was on several months back, and she is the CEO and founder of Spirit of Discovery Park. And it is going to be an all-inclusive park for every body. And I guess
Googled it after you told me that.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Matter of fact, Patrick has a note up here on his dry erase board. Investigate Spirit. What was it? Spirit of Discovery Amusement Park gift shop as potential venue.
Yes, absolutely. And Jamie is doing such amazing things as far as, I mean, thinking literally, I feel, about every person that could be employed or could benefit or enjoy this Spirit of Discovery Park. I guess Violet is her daughter, I don't know, maybe she was, because we talked about gluten-free dog treats, so I'm not sure which being we're talking about when she says Violet is gluten-free. But yeah, so I think what Patrick has done, what he's continuing to do, and then also maybe maybe that would be something that she could have in the gift shop, that you guys could work something out. But she does such a great job, like I said, of remembering every ability level. And so often I think blind people are left out in a lot of ways, but she is making sure that like their business cards have Braille on them, and things all around the park have Braille on them, and they're having a grow garden that they're going to have. She shared a picture of it a few days ago, and I'm so excited to have that in the St. Louis metro or St. Louis area. I don't know exactly where it's going up yet, but
road trip.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love it if you guys came out, or I would love actually to come to Vermont and stay at your bed and breakfast sometime. I got to go to Maine a few years ago, and I just absolutely loved it. And the pictures that I showed today, that's my jam. I love the mountains. I love snow.
Yeah.
I love to look at the water. I like to be on the water, but like I said, I can't float. I don't swim. But
Patrick will teach you.
Awesome. He will be a miracle worker if he can, because I've had many people try. So we do need to wrap up. I could continue to talk to you and to talk about all the great things that Patrick is doing. But before we go, obviously we have purelypatrick.com as a way to find you all. Is there anything that you would like to share that we haven't already shared, or any other ways or things that are going on that you would like to say really quickly?
Well, the cell phone number that's on Patrick's website is my cell phone. And it's either his job coach or myself that monitor his Purely Patrick email. So, if you have any questions about starting a business, how do you do this? How do you get a job coach? Again, realizing it's probably different in every state, but I'd be happy to talk to any parents. If there's someone who's like, explain that adaptive skiing to me, and how do I get into that? There's some district chapters that could probably help with resources, and I'd be happy to be a resource for anybody, whether it's recreational activities or whether it's employment. And you know, I think the last thing I would say is that sadly Patrick's Facebook page got hacked not too long ago to past recovery because they actually changed his recovery email. So Facebook has frozen that. And so we've just yesterday opened a new account. So if you want to friend him, it's purely Patrick Lewis. We're trying just one. He had a personal before and a business. And now we can't get to either. So we're just doing now purely Patrick Lewis. So feel free to friend him there and spread the word. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much for being here today. It's been a pleasure to get to know you, and I very much enjoyed chatting with you on the phone and the little bit of interactions that we've had through emails and such, and absolutely today has been wonderful. So thank you both very much, and have a great rest of your day.
Great.
Thanks everyone who joined.
Thanks.